you're not going to feel your best every day. It's impossible. There's going to be peaks and valleys, highs and lows. But what you can do is identify what you still have opportunity to do, right? You have an opportunity to start over right now in this moment going forward.
It feels good, man. It feels good, right? Yo, I'm in the light at the end of the tunnel. Paper stacks, yeah, I got them in the bundles. Harry Potter breaking bread with a muggle.
All right, Gary, you ready to rock?
Always ready. Born ready.
Before we get started, rest in peace, Ozzy Osbourne as well. Ty, you ready?
Let's do it.
Timeout. Tyler, who are we taking a timeout with today?
Kevin, good to see you, brother. And ladies and gentlemen, we have Gary Dunbar, the Director of Digital Transformation at NG North America. Gary, thanks for being on the show, man. We're excited to have a Raging Cajun here. I think we just had a Raging Cajun a few weeks ago, but we got to start out with this. If we're flying in Kevin to the Baton Rouge, Louisiana, what are we serving him, man? I know me and you talked about a lot of food a couple of weeks ago, but what's the most Cajun of the cagiest food that we can get Kevin on this week?
So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to head down to Pyrenees. That's basically French for uncle, godfather, something like that. But you're going to go get some crawfish etouffee, and you're going to love it. It's going to fill you up, and you're going to keep going back, and the bread is going to just knock your socks off. So head on. Yeah.
Crawfish etouffee. And Gary, I always got to bring up, man, boudin, right? How can I describe boudin to a Northeasterner? Because I did get some boudin flown in one time from a client up in Rochester, and people were like, don't put that in our oven, man. Like, you know what I mean? It looks crazy.
Yeah, so boudin is what ground beef is meant to be. Boudin is like the savory food that you want every morning. If you get some boudin, then you basically made a good friend out of everyone down the hall. Nobody's going to tempt you.
And exactly what is in it? Like, it looks like a big like sausage, but it's like, is there gator and rice and peppers, or is it a little voodoo sprinkled on it?
So remember, boudin, as we know it, originated in Louisiana, which is kind of home to the mixture of the most intricate collection of meat, rice, a little bit of onions, peppers. But it's really, you can have it basically, they'll put it as a sausage where you do have that mixture of your meat, your beef, and there's all different types that you can see around that you can have. But the most important thing is got to have some kick, right? So if you're going to be in Louisiana, you're going to have some food with some kick. That's going to be your introduction to the state of Louisiana food. Is number one, you're going to have some flavor. It's going to be good. And number two is going to have some kick. So get you a glass of water, tea, lemonade, whatever you can, because you're going to need it. But you're also going to have a big smile on your face. So
I wish I could walk you over to my fridge right now, because I have a whole shelf dedicated to hot sauces. So more kick, the better for me on my side. Yeah. I got a question for you, because you got me all hungry now. Now I'm trying to switch my mindset a little bit. But you talked about transformation before we got on. I find that sometimes I read a quote, a saying, or a phrase that I always want to share with other people because it just struck me in that moment. What's something down on the interstate, down in Louisiana, a sign that somebody would drive by every morning going to work and going home? What's one quote that Gary Dunbar would wish everybody could read?
Number one is a quote by Winston Churchill. My tastes are simple. I'm easily satisfied with the best. So if you are striving for the best, then that's what you deserve, because you're not taking second place. You're not taking second best to anything. But my probably even more important than that one would be a quote by Kobe Bryant, Mamba mentality. It is, and let me make certain I got it right. Mamba mentality is a constant quest to be the best version of yourself. So you think about transformation, I think about really those two quotes. Am I trying to be the best version of myself? And also, based on Winston Churchill's quote, is am I going to accept less than the best? You want to accept the best, be the best version of yourself, so you accept nothing less than the best.
Love that.
And that's a fun journey, right? But it's like, to me, I get sometimes I'm not my best, right?
Yeah.
And I know it, and it drives me nuts, guys, because I've been there. I've been feeling my best, and for me, it's hard to keep it consistent. Like I will knock out 3 weeks in a row, eating perfect, working out perfect, treating people perfect. And then I don't know what happens, man. Like when you fall off the wagon, Gary, because I think we all do. And I think we're supposed to embrace that part, which sucks to me. Like people are like, embrace the failure. I'm like, but this isn't fun because I'm not at my best. How do you overcome that? How do you get back on the wagon of seeking being the best the best version of yourself?
Yeah, so easily I can tell you my advice is sweets, candy, cookies, mostly candy. And for me, getting off of that, or as you said, in the other walks of life, whenever I'm off, I try to prioritize, compartmentalize. Like, you're not going to feel your best every day. It's impossible. There's going to be peaks and valleys, highs and lows. But what you can do is identify what you still have opportunity to do, right? You have an opportunity to start over right now in this moment going forward. I think historically, a person, especially if you haven't really figured out a lot of things about yourself, you keep looking back at what happened before, what happened last month, last week, yesterday, earlier today. And that time is gone. Right here, right now, this is where you have opportunity to improve and be the best version. You have to give yourself some grace. You can't hold things against yourself because there's going to be mood swings. No one is perfect. No one who was born on this planet is perfect. So there's going to be opportunity to rise. And also, sometimes it's good to challenge yourself. Like, even though I'm not feeling my best, what can I do? How can I press forward? I tell my kids all the time is that it's not really about failing. It's about, pushing forward in spite of what was deemed failure. Because failure is kind of a construct, right? Have you failed because you got a bad grade or you didn't do as well as you thought you did? But only time you really fail is when you don't try even harder, or if you don't push forward or identify, what's the best priority right now to focus on. And I think back to when I had tough times in college. Like, man, I mean, electrical engineering major, had that one engineering math class that was just kicking my butt. And I thought, okay, didn't do that great on that test. What's my next move? It's like, what was my opportunity to improve? Think about it in that term. It's like, even if I can't take that test over, I'm going to pass the class and know that it doesn't make sense to go back and take that class again. But how can I improve and get better so that doesn't happen again? Like one of my favorite statements that someone made, where different people coming back to campus. He said that he had one particular class. I forget what it was. He's a mechanical engineer, so we don't like him. But but he said that he had a particular class that he wasn't that strong in. So he took grad school classes after college, and he made it his strength. He turned his weakness into his strength. So sometimes if you look at what you don't like that much or what isn't the best, and you focus and prepare, then you can make your weakness a strength. I mean, I look at it, I'm going to give a lot of sports quotes here or analogies, but you look at what Michael Jordan did, and I talk about Kobe Bryant, and I talk about different other athletes like a Steph Curry. They each found some part of the game that wasn't great, and they worked on it until it became a strength. I mean, and I'm going to talk about Kobe a lot because that was my favorite. All right. This guy went through and was shooting left-handed jumpers and in the game. And I think about a Larry Bird who took a whole West Coast trip. Their entire, back in the 80s, they played like 20 games on the West Coast because of travel constraints. Whole trip shot with nothing but his left hand, like average about 30. So you think about people who prepare or turn a weakness into a strength, or turn an off day into the catalyst for rising above. That's what I think about low points or times when I'm down. How can I make this an opportunity? And it's the same in everyday work life. Like, okay, my team, we're not great at this right now. We got called out for it. What do we do? Or we take this as an opportunity to improve and lead the industry, not just the organization. We're going to lead the industry. And that's our goal, to be the best. So,
Gary,
I just found out gracious. So,
I think it's always interesting because you talked about before, right? Failure is a construct, and I think so is the definition of what's good and what's bad.
Right.
And I think to your point, it's in those challenging moments, and frankly, I think I've learned the most about myself through challenges. Right. I would also define that as rock bottom in some of those areas, both emotionally, physically. And that's really where I think you turn more inward and focus on self, but also into that spiritual realm as well, because you're looking for answers that you simply have not seen before to make that assumption or to make that relationship or that causation that I think a lot of us rely on in everything that we do every day. And I love what you said. Sometimes through tragedy, when you're going through a difficult time, you can't always understand what you're meant to learn. But through rock bottom and sometimes something that I hate or I'm bad at is that one piece of motivation that you need in order to continue to improve and strive for better. But like you said, Gary, I think the critical point in all of that is letting it go, not looking back to yesterday's for today's answers, or also assuming of what tomorrow is going to bring based off of what you're experiencing yesterday and today. And I love how you said it. You can use sports analogies all the time, but I think sports is one of those unique life events where you have to be in the moment. Yep. There is no thinking about yesterday, and you're not thinking 10 seconds left, right? You are fully present. And I think, like you said earlier, I think transformation is one of those things that really comes, you're going to have good days and you're going to have bad days. You're going to have groups of people that are for it and groups of people that are against it. Yep. And those are the peaks and valleys that you discussed and what you talked about. But taking that off day as a catalyst, I think, allows you to regroup and then re-strategize.
Yeah.
What is one of why did you become obsessed with change? Because most people fear it, right? People fear uncertainty. They fear the unknown. How did you get yourself comfortable? Is that something that you developed in college, like you said, when you faced adversity? Or is it just something that you found yourself naturally as one of those inherited traits of Gary Dunbar?
So I think first, it wasn't change that I was obsessed with. It was growth. It was driving toward that understanding that, I can't be perfect, but I can get better. And in order to get better, you have to do something a little different than what you've done before, right? And identifying what it is I need to be better at or my team needs to be better at, the organization needs to be better at. It's kind of taking the steps necessary. It might be small steps, but taking those small steps in order to identify where the growth opportunity is, what's the opportunity to change. Maybe it's something that we're doing. Maybe it's something that is an obvious, glaring opportunity. But there's going to be a root cause, right? And identifying that root cause is where the change comes in, right? The growth part is the vision for the future. Like, we know that there's going to have to be a vision. Like, what is our expectation and what is our projected outcome? That's where we want to grow. When you look at maturity models going from, nascent to nuanced to fully mature over the course of several stages. Each one of those stages is growth, but there's some type of change that has to happen over the course of that time. So for me, it started, and I can take this all the way back to, growing up on a farm in Louisiana. But every time I found some adversity, I fought through in some way and identified that there has to be something different that needs to happen. And when you talk about a change model, that model is going to be based on your current circumstances. So I'm definitely not going to advocate for using the same change model for every situation. But having a process to go through. I look at Cotter's change model, number one, sense of urgency. Like, why is this change important? And can we develop a guiding coalition to move forward together as an organization or as a team, or even if it's a personal situation, who can I bring on this journey with me to provide some support or balance to my thought process? Like, each of those things is an effort to create the necessary path forward. So, and again, a long-winded answer. You're going to have to cut this down.
No,
good, man. Keep
I
it
think
rolling.
you're part of the guiding coalition piece is huge because, consensus is so challenging to reach, where it's like you're not saying somebody's idea is a bad idea, but each idea influences the decisions or the choices to reach that consensus to get that buy-in. So, yeah, you and I could talk all day about that stuff because I'm passionate about it too. And I think for me, it starts with a level of curiosity and hope, and I think hope is how then I get to that vision. But I think it requires the ability to understand that there is better. Yeah. When's the last time that we looked at this? Or is it just this repeating cycle that we find ourselves in? And now we're in this autopilot state when better is possible and can be out there. So I love that. Ty, what do you got?
Oh, man, I was just grinning to myself over here, y'all. I hired many change managers, VP of change. And one dude was the best, man. I was like, tell me a little bit about you. Cause he would like issue people their ProSci certs and stuff. And he goes, you can get this dang cert, man. But if you don't got champions in there, this book means nothing.
Yeah.
Because I need to meet the team to see if I have any influencers, and I was like, that's the biggest thing. He's like, I've been teaching this stuff for 25 years and that's all that matters, because it sounded like if you don't have other people bought in, you can come into Capital One as a change manager and not do a dang thing because you're not pulling the right strings. And I think it was he kept saying, you got to have a dang champion. and Bill. Yeah. But Gary, I wanted to take you back real quick, man, to a real fun question that I wanted to ask you, dude. I was thinking about this all yesterday. If me, you, and Kevin, and we'll get back to transformation and all this fun stuff, but if me, you, and Kevin were driving over Lake Pontchartrain to New Orleans, what tune are we listening to, man? What are we cranking on volume 57?
Whew. Let's see. Man. So you have to remember, I grew up in the late 90s, early 2000s. So for me, it was everything from Cash Money, No Limit to
Oh,
All of the things that you don't play with your parents in the car.
yeah.
But I think the brass band "Do What You Wanna" is the one. It's like a 7-minute song. Actually, I think it's like a 9-minute song. You got to listen to it. It's amazing, but it'll take you probably 10 miles down the road. Listen to that one song, but "Do What You Wanna." Yeah, that's gonna be it.
All right, and I'll hit it with a little make him say "oh" right behind that, man. I grew up in the same era as you, dude. When music videos were a thing, right?
Yeah.
Like I can still picture the No Limit Soldiers, dude, till this day. But Gary, I guess take us back, man. Like it always fascinates me how people even get into engineering, because my brain does not work like y'all's, and I think you know what I mean by that. Like, I've been like sitting down at a dinner before with some engineers, and all they're doing is looking at how the ceiling, how it was built. And I'm like, we're here to order food, guys. And they're like, well, that's a waste of space over there. The Jason Angle. And I'm like, and I'm not joking. And then they'll go on this rabbit hole. And I'm like, okay, I'm just looking at some appetizers, y'all. And y'all are looking at how the dang building's constructed.
Yeah.
What like it had to start when you were a kid, I had to imagine, because like I really do think people are born with some gene of engineering. Because me, man, like me putting a coffee table together, y'all, looks like me trying to dismantle an atomic bomb. Like I'm sweating. I'm looking at these stupid directions, even though they're on YouTube, and all the parts aren't there. And it just, it does not, I have no passion for it at all. I'll write a check for someone to come put my coffee table together. But Gary, how did it start, man? Like, was it something growing up on the farm that you saw? Like you could make something, because it's all about making stuff easier, right? Automated, in a way. And my brain doesn't go there. I can come up with the creative ideas all day, but I think coming up with the idea is the easy part. It sounds like. And I've heard a lot of people say that, but how did it start, man?
Yeah, so the one common thread I've seen with every engineer is they want to know why. I want to know why, I want to know how. And overall, that if there was a gene sequence, there's that gene sequence in there. And the engineer wants to know how and why. And from there, everything kind of snowballs, right? What can I do? How can I make it better? How can I learn to do this on my own? Those are the questions that every engineer I've ever met asks. Some of the smartest engineers that I've met just keep asking the same questions, like how, why, where does that come from? What do you mean by that? And at some point you want to tell the engineer, okay, stop talking, because they're always asking questions, and I'm no different in the sense that I keep asking questions because it's that curiosity, and it's an intellectual curiosity, it's a personal curiosity, and being an engineer means that you're curious to the point where you want to put your hands on it, you want to think about it, and it becomes almost an obsession. And for me, as a kid growing up on a farm, everything was new to me. Everything. Everywhere I went, there was something new. Even on the farm where I grew up, there was always something new. My dad, my mom, my grandparents were around. I could find something about something, is anything. I always ask myself, how do y'all know this stuff? How do you know this? How do you know that? And once you ask too many questions, they start telling you need to go to school and learn about it. and that's what you do. You go to school, you learn. And as a engineer in training, or engineer, prospective engineer growing up, I knew that if you ask the right questions, you're going to get the right answers. But if you ask the wrong questions, you're just going to go down the wrong path, or you're going to have to keep digging until you start asking the right questions. And that's probably one of the most important things that becoming an engineer.
Okay.
Yeah, it was just learning to ask the right questions.
And I want to ask you one fun question, dude. I've always, because like I'm the guy, Gary and Kevin. I promise this will be my last question for a sec. But if you would put me back in like to this like 1700s, Gary, and like if I was Tyler White from 2025, back in like let's just say the 1700s before electricity existed, I couldn't help these people with what like with electricity even. What if we had Gary Dunbar back in let's just say 1750? What would be the first like 2025 invention you would bring to the table, and could you do it? Could you help the world in 1750 understand electricity?
In 1750, help them understand electricity. I could have helped them understand how an AC motor works, or how the use of magnets and electromagnetic theory could start. So maybe move us forward quite a bit. But quite honestly, yeah, the world could have used it at that point in time. But what would have been more important would have been someone probably in a different field. I'm thinking water purification was probably the number one thing, because lots of people died from different pathogens and whatever the case in their drinking water system. So that's what I would have probably focused on, because I've always considered myself not really so specifically a specialist in degree. Like I got an electrical engineering degree because that's what I really wanted to do at the time. But understanding the world's problems and focusing on, what was the most important thing at the time. Yeah, getting electricity, maybe inventing the first motorized vehicle in the 1750s would have helped. but it doesn't do any good if humanity is suffering at the time. It's like, so
okay,
that's where my thoughts would have been.
That's cool. Right. I love a couple of things going back to what you just said and then previously, but I find it, I guess, the root cause, right? And never stopping asking questions. As you were talking, all I could think of my son, who is obsessed right now with the word why. He'll ask you the question, why, and you really got to stop and think, right? Am I communicating that effectively, or what words or what analogies or what things can I help grow his knowledge and understanding? And then he started asking, I think like last week or the week before, well, how do you know that? And so when you were saying that, I was just laughing. I was like, oh my God, it is that innocent curiosity, but asking good questions is really the crux. I tell people in a lot of the sales training and coaching and development that I do, I've made more money with the questions that I ask than I have anything else. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people that to be able to drop that ego or that belief that everything is really how you start to find the root cause, because there's different things that I see. Some people stop just at the problem. They will call out a problem. They'll say, hey, that's a problem. We got a problem here. If we don't do something about it. And that's what I would say. Some people then stop just at the problem and can't go beyond it, right? They can't say, well, this is the problem and this is what we should do. So they almost get stuck in this complaining phase, right? Even though they'll continue to do it the way that they've always done it because, hey, that's what you told me to do, even though it causes all these other problems. So I also see that nearsightedness perspective too, where I don't really care how it impacts this person, this person, this person, and this person. Yeah. But I think, to your point, from an engineering perspective, mine's more of a scientific method perspective, that actually determining that true root cause, I think, is why we do like change. Mm-hmm. Because you can form any hypothesis, right, or any theory, but until you actually vet it out and flush it out to determine if that's actually true or false, how do you really know, right? Back to that initial question. And I think it's that questioning that more of people need to stop and do. But if, Gary, to your point earlier, if you're stuck in your past, right, and you're trying to predict and control your future, we're assuming more than ever. We're listening less and less. Therefore, we're not really asking questions and just taking everything for face value.
Yeah.
Or it's this belief, right, that I can find it online and now it's knowledge and now I can teach others something that maybe have never was a truth.
Yeah.
So I say all that to say this is that this constant search is really what I see more people stopping to do. And Tyler, you said it, we're always trying to make things easier. And if we look back at all the innovation, right, and all the creation, it's ultimately to make us lazier as a society, as a person, it really is. And then that MIT came out about ChatGPT, where now we're not using even these parts of our brain.
All right.
Will humans innovate themselves into extinction?
Yeah, Wally. Yeah, so.
Yeah, where they're all fat as hell. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an issue. That's definitely a great question to ask. But when you were discussing, Kevin, the problems and people stopping at problems, and I think what most people stop as a symptom versus the problem.
100%.
And that's what root cause analysis really teaches us is what is the true impact? That's the problem. Like, why is a production line impacted? Why is construction impacted? Why is a patient's heart impacted? Well, that's a symptom of something else happening that we need to investigate. We need to keep asking those questions, why, to get to the true root cause and understand where the change needs to happen. Specifically, and I'll talk about everything other than digital transformation and electrical engineering, but specifically think about diabetes, right? Why does diabetes occur? There's a litany of reasons, right? Number one, we want to think about, the person's overweight. Well, I know a lot of people that are overweight that don't have diabetes. Well, what is the issue then? Well, there could be activity levels, there could be certain dietary opportunities. It is beyond one specific cause for everyone, so we shouldn't generalize. But when you look at AI, and as you said, I'll take it a step further. I was concerned in college that I wasn't going to be as good as the engineers who graduated 20 years before me. And that was a big concern for me because they didn't have graphing calculators. They had slide rules. I learned to use a slide rule in high school, and I couldn't understand how these people didn't take that slide rule and step. Well, I couldn't understand why anyone would want to continue because everything was so much more difficult. You had to be so much more regimented, drive and push yourself into the full calculus, handwrite this, that. And as we go on further along, things have become easier, yes, in the sense that technology is being used as an enabler. But on top of that, we have to also think about the pace of technological change is increasing. So every 20 years, technology reinvents itself. 7 years, I think we're on something like 3-year cycle right now. The latest has been that quantum computing is really taking off. And now we're going to shift over to Star Trek. So, but as a kid, I used to think about, okay, if they say computer, make me this, or beam me up, let's go from here to there. People still have to be the catalyst, right? I think it comes down to, instead of just saying AI is going to prevent us from using the maximum capacity of our brain that we could use on a daily basis, or we're using, maybe we are doing the exact thing. Maybe we should be doing the exact thing that we tell everyone that AI is for, is giving us the opportunity to think about something else or to think about doing something better. Maybe every specific thing that we're doing is a portion of waste when we know that there is a tool that is of low cost or no cost that can help us, so I can focus on something specifically important for people. So I think it's more of asking the question to reframe how we use technology, how we use people, versus thinking about how we can sit people down and tell them let AI do that. I think
Yeah.
I think there is a greater emphasis to be put on human capability versus replacing a human.
Yeah, exactly. And I love how you put that, right? I was half kidding about the human demise to your wall, but all kidding aside, maybe how we were using our brains before. And I love how you put it, will I be as good as that graduated without this 20 years ago? And I loved how you put that, because I think in society, right, the youth always seem to say, well, we must be smarter than those that were before us, and I've seen a lack of, I guess, questions. I was obsessed with my grandparents, I was obsessed with gathering that wisdom and that knowledge from them and their experiences. And I'll never forget it. This pitcher who was getting inducted to the Baseball Hall of Fame said he was amazed by how many of the pro players did not rely on the alumni of the clubs of the past. They stopped asking them for advice.
Yeah.
And so that know-it-all mentality is interesting. But I love how you put it, because maybe we'll start using our brains for different things. Maybe now is more of the opportunity to focus on some of those other dominoes that we haven't focused the time, energy, and effort on, like world hunger or cancer research, or not to think that these things don't exist, but I love how you just said that now these cycles are becoming shorter. I just read the other day, too, yesterday, the Earth is magically spinning faster all of a sudden. And by 2029, they might shave a second off of the clock.
Yeah.
But I think that gets to the crux of where we started this conversation, Gary, that change is almost inevitable. Evolution is a necessary measure of that change. What is one thing, when you talked about getting that champion team, right, and building that momentum towards that vision or towards that goal? Because I 100% agree. I think everybody stops at the symptom and says, that's it, this is it, we got to do this, and then are always let down by that change of that symptom didn't actually cure the disease itself. What are some of your tips? What are some of your tricks of the trade to build consensus? I'm sure politicians are even going to listen to this episode and wonder, how the heck do I get consensus? But what are some of your tricks, Gary?
Yeah. So I don't know if I have tricks, but I definitely have process. Number one, my process is you have to understand who the team is. You have to understand that not everyone is motivated by the same things. I was just having a conversation with my steering team yesterday. Melanie and Audra, we talked about how to bring the entire fold into our change excellence framework. And we are focusing on trying to generalize it, but that's not the right way. It is understanding that there's opportunity to gather feedback, but in order to get positive feedback, there has got to be trust up front. You got to have trust amongst the teams to be able to feel like their thoughts are going to be respected and they are going to have that feeling of inclusivity. Because let's face it, who wants to buy into a process that you don't know much about just because someone says it? There has to be some trust. And in order to trust, there has to be enough of a concerted effort to gain that trust without feeling as though it is leading them down a negative path. So in order to, create that trust, like I said, create an area of inclusivity and decision making, making certain that the team, the people have the opportunity to make some decisions that are going to affect them. And when they make those decisions, they will feel more empowered. So empowering people to have the ability to basically put their hands on the steering wheel and drive the car. That's going to be, maybe you're not going to let them drive it all the way down. I mean, we've done it with kids, right? In the sense, you teach a kid how to drive a car, you can tell them all day long, like, this is how you do it, and I want you to go out there and drive correctly. But, I mean, it doesn't have to be kids, it could be anyone, but you give them opportunity to drive and you trust them with that. And when they feel as though they've gotten some trust and some decision-making power, then they're more likely to kind of get in the car with you and let you drive a little further down the road so we can do things. So I think those are the things that I've done and I really focus on in order to make certain that we gain that alignment, gain the trust necessary to really impact either the organization, but it's no different in their personal lives as well, right? You meet someone, identify, this is a person I think I can trust, because who gets into a relationship with someone they don't trust, right? Or doesn't. So that's my...
No, I love how you put it too, is I think empowering those closest to the problems, right?
Yeah.
To start asking those questions. Because what I was going to say is that in business, and you've worked for a lot of Fortune 120 companies, right? You were probably the top 10 in some of those companies. I also worked in corporate America as well for a very long time. And I think there was almost like this unwritten rule or this myth, right? That you don't ask questions, you just do. And maybe that was, where I was falling on that totem pole, right? The doers, the ants, the ones that were closest to the work, but also closest to the problems, were told really not to ask those questions. And I think what I'm hearing you say, right, which I do in my own work today, is empowering those individuals to stop and start questioning, right, to bring forth those ideas and those solutions, and then feel empowered to make those suggestions and give that feedback. And I just love how you put that, because I think that is the quintessential piece of success for all great change management. But it's almost a re-envisioning of that systematic approach that has kind of delayed a lot of progress within a lot of businesses, and we get into that stagnant state of, it's good enough, or we've always done it this way. So I love how you put that, Gary. Sorry, Tyler. I know I just hoarded Gary for 20 minutes.
Oh, I've been glued in, guys. And Gary, I just wanted to chime in here, man. So you work at a renewable energy company, like almost 160,000 employees, right? Like, out of all the energies, like the wind, the carbon, the what else do y'all do? I mean, you'll do almost every source of energy, it looks like.
Yeah.
Which one do you see taking off? Because I've seen a lot of I've seen wind getting kind of out of the picture lately. Is the wind, is it that much of a hassle? Like, is it really not working? Like, all those dang propellers we see in the air, is it just a waste of time in your experience? On top of that, how close are we to running cars off water someday, man? That's my other question.
All right. Yeah, let's see, one question at a time. Let's see. So number one, which one do I see taking off? So solar's been around forever, and I don't think it's going anywhere. I think there's a sustainable path to continued success with solar. Wind as renewable, you have to remember a large part of the wind is the mechanical operation, and that takes actual maintenance, that takes actual utility operations and reliability process to make certain that it operates effectively. The cold freezes taught us things a few years ago about making certain that we had, the right thermocouples on to identify whether or not we are at the right temperature to continue operating, and also making certain that we had the right equipment to keep them warm where they need to be. But I think just in general, the focus of continuing to drive solar is going to be an opportunity. I don't think the world is getting cooler by any means. I think we're going to get more sun, and it's probably the one technology that we know that we're going to have access to. Even on a cloudy day, you're going to get a radiance. And this is purely my speculation for me. But we've seen the spark or the proliferation of microgrids, and the fact that you can use basically what I call combined cycle, alternative fuels or multiple fuels to drive a generation and a generator or a generation of power. So feed by solar, feed by if you want natural gas, if you want by wind, whatever the case. I think that's a great opportunity, but we're definitely going to see even better battery technology in the future. So battery solar systems or battery storage systems going to be something that's going to be even better in the future, as you've seen with electric vehicles. The charger or the source of materials are getting better over time, so the cost is coming down on some of the others. So electric vehicle charging is going to be even more of a readily available product to use. So, but you had another question. I'm sorry. I forgot.
Oh, you're good, my man. And we're coming up to the top of the hour, and I got to jump to my guys. But man, Gary, I would just want to say thanks for your time here, man. I think Kevin's got a few nuggets for his panel coming up tonight, man. So thank you for that, dude.
Yeah, no.
And I just really wanted to say, man, you're an interesting guy, and it was cool to hear your story. Growing up from a farm and now working at a place with 160,000 people, and making some transformation happen over there is pretty darn cool, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think being able to take what you read in books, and I think there's this mythology between what you learn in school, right? There's the academic application.
Yeah.
And then weaving it into real life application. And I think that only comes from trial and error. So gets us all the way back to the original part of the conversation and back to another sports analogy, but shooters shoot, right? And then you figure out what needs to change in order to make the ball go in. So I so appreciate today's conversation, Gary. I'm excited to continue to get to know you, but thanks for taking your lunch hour with us.
Oh, not a problem. Thank you. I enjoyed this. And again, I could talk about transformation, change, and probably my life story. Maybe that's self-serving, but still, I can talk about it all the time. But yeah, I've enjoyed this. This has been a pleasure. Maybe next time we can talk more football. But
that's Tyler's dojo. I'll do the world's definition of football, soccer, but yeah, this was great. I appreciate it. You gave me a lot of good things to think about on my 2-hour drive onto this panel. So I appreciate it. Nice to meet you, and Tyler, pleasure as always. You look good in orange, but
thanks, guys.